question.
Sure.
In a perfect world, what does a perfect community garden look like?
A perfect community garden is a space where people from all over that neighborhood and all over that community come to fellowship with one another over food, over art, over music, and family. That is, more, and that's more so than the food, like growing the food. Growing the food is a big piece because that's what makes the garden the garden. But it's the fellowship. It's the people being amongst each other, communicating and smiling and dancing with one another. Yeah, that's the perfect community garden in my eyes.
Yeah.
So what I've seen over the years is community gardens come and go.
Okay.
And usually when they start, man, everybody in the community, everybody's so excited. We're doing press releases and there's photo buzz and photo ops, and it's just like the buzz is it's hot. Like people are just into it. A year into it, that energy is just gone.
Yeah.
Like completely dead.
Gardens have been taking
An opportunity to provide
Excited where it's happened. This should be just one of a number of gardens that we are able to establish.
Yeah, this is iGrow South City. People would consider this unsuccessful because the weeds have taken over. It's not a whole lot of things growing. It's still a beautiful space, but the activity is not there. The thing about grants is that you have to have a team of people who constantly are going after grants.
Gotcha.
You gotta be, grants just don't fall in your lap.
Right.
Even the announcement of grants don't fall in your lap unless you're connected and plugged in with the people who are connected with other institutions and government organizations and things like that. So you gotta be plugged in. I didn't want, because the people up top, they were like, well, just shut iGrow down, plant a bunch of cover crops until, January of 2018 until we can decide what we're going to do. I was like, no, we already got stuff in the ground. We already growing. So I'm not going to walk away from this. And so I kind of took over the financial piece of it as well as just the day-to-day operations, which I was already in charge of.
Gotcha.
So it was just the financial piece that I, became in charge of, and that just allowed us to continue to flow. And then with the help of the committed volunteers like Dennis and Winsley, and they kept the work days going. So we were able to keep the program alive even though funding had run out. There was a transition period that the organization went through when Nathan, he was getting married and he was starting a new chapter of his life. And so that's when he sort of passed the baton to myself as far as iGrow. And iGrow was kind of at its peak as a youth organization at the time. And then when he left, we did everything that we could to keep things going. But the organizational structure began to sort of become a little bit flimsy. The overall leadership of the Tallahassee Food Network, it wasn't as strong as it was in the beginning. There was so much going on, and my observation is that my leadership or my directors began to focus elsewhere instead of remaining and staying focused on the program itself, so that we could stay relevant and stay on top and stay with that same type of power and energy that we had in the very beginning. We've maintained a consistent level of community engagement. From day one, it's never been as strong as we would have liked it to be. You have to have a community, or you have to have people in a community that really, really want this, that really want to see a garden in their community, that they want to actually participate in the fruition of and the manifestation of a garden. And it's just the community members have to be dedicated. And a lot of times what you see, depending on the type of community that it is, because if it's a community that's a little bit more well-off, people have additional time on their hands, you know, and there's a sense of community amongst that neighborhood. And so a neighborhood is just the place. A community is where the activity and the consciousness exists within that place.
Where would you put the neighborhood that surrounds iGrow?
That surrounds iGrow. On a scale, I'd probably have to say it was in the 2 to 3, 4 range in terms of community attitude, community consciousness, community awareness. That understanding of how important that connection is to their food and their own health is not there. These things exist all around iGrow. That's the crazy thing. These conditions that are food related are all surrounding a fresh food garden. And so that just goes to show you that the education is not there. The level of education and awareness as to how important that garden is to your own health and well-being is absent. And true enough, part of that responsibility is on us as people in that community or in that neighborhood, saying, this is what we have to offer, and this is why you should come to the garden.
The community garden, it needs what it needs, no matter who is there. But in the long run, if your community is disconnected, you want to be patient enough for the connection to happen again. And so that's very much like waiting on a harvest.
That disconnect is what troubles me most, because this is the racial group that I belong to. This is the African American racial group. And so I want to see everybody and all groups of people thrive and be healthy. But it also hurts me just a little bit, probably a little bit more, because these are the people that I identify with as a racial category, right? These are the people that I grew up around. And so when I see that movement around the garden, and the people that are there just don't even pay it any mind, they just see it as a walkthrough. You know, people just walk through, and that's it. They don't stop, they don't talk, they don't, you know, what sometimes they do. I don't want to say that they don't talk, but it's just really disheartening sometimes that the garden is not having the impact that we set it up to have. And that's been troubling, you know. And that's kind of emotional. It is kind of emotional. I want to see more. I think just, you know, exposure is everything. And as a teacher, that was one of my mantras. Exposure is everything. And so just showing people what you can do is critical to their own worth, their own self-worth and edification. If you can show people that this is possible, and you don't have to have large plots of land, you don't have to have expensive this and expensive equipment, like you can just do this at your home. And I think that's what we were really promoting. iGrow was more like a green space. It's like a park almost. And that's why we've tried to create benches and have chairs and different little areas to just kind of relax and be peaceful. And so I think just having food growing, and see, a lot of people don't realize when you have that type of space, when you grow all of that food, you got fruit trees, produce, soil, so you're going to attract all of this life. And so what iGrow actually does, it helps to create more of this ecosystem that exists right there on the farm space. And of course, it will extend out into the greater neighborhood. And so, you know, there are owls and hawks and squirrels, and we get tons of birds and the insects, and all of these things are there in numbers because the farm is there. And so I think subliminally what people tend to get out of it is that it's just a peaceful space. The way it brings people together and allows folks to kind of network with one another, and that you actually build alliances and build bridges with people when you're at the farm.
So, do you think that the garden model, I mean, do you think that the idea of a community garden, is it even feasible to sustain it over a long period of time?
I think that the community garden is really supposed to be a long-term solution to some of our problems. It's supposed to be there to provide inspiration, to provide healthy, affordable options for people, just good, nutrient-dense food for people. And again, that space and that place where people can come to kick their shoes off, sweat out their stresses of the day, and enjoy all of the time spent in that space. So the garden is supposed to be something that lasts. We just gotta find ways to reach the people in the neighborhood too. That is the main thing, and however many times I touched on that point, we gotta get the people walking up and down these streets to come here and engage and being part of what's going on. Then they can take control of themselves and their neighborhood, and unite to put up a voice against gentrification and put up a voice against building on and building in their neighborhoods with structures and businesses that they may not want, right? Reclaiming the homes that are here and not just allowing everybody from the outside to come in and buy up all of these properties. So there's a lot that has to take place here in Frenchtown and on the south side of town. But I know that the garden can play a very proactive role in bringing about some of that change.